Hi, my name is Gillian Edwards. I'm from Stourbridge Colonic Hydrotherapy Clinic, and today I'm going to do a demonstration on what happens when you suffer with Irritable Bowel Syndrome and you get the associated symptoms of constipation, diarrhea, bloating and pain. So I'm using a tube like this, which represents the same sort of diameter as your bowel. Bowel and your colon is the same thing, and it's the last part of your gut, and it's a tubular muscle. So like other muscles, it contracts and relaxes in order to function, and because it's a tubular muscle, when it contracts it actually closes down, and when it relaxes it opens up again. And we get that nice movement that allows everything to move along through your gut. So if you're going to the toilet normally and your bowel is in the same shape as it should be something like this. I'm going to demonstrate what should happen. So I'm using rice as my waste matter. So I'm just going to pour this rice in here, and as you can see there's some waste matter in that tube, and then what I'm going to do is drop it into my jug. So when you go to the toilet it should come out very easily because the waste matter will easily pass through that tube. So what I'm going to demonstrate now is what happens when people suffer with an irritable bowel. Irritable means it's upset. Your bowel is the organ, and syndrome is a general term for a collection of symptoms. So that means that your bowel isn't doing the functions that it should do, but there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it, in as much as it's not a disease. That doesn't mean it's an insignificant condition, and a huge amount of the population suffer with it. So it can be really painful and create, as I say, bloating, constipation and diarrhea. So this is our colon that it should be like in diameter, and what happens is it can go into this spasm. Same as you can get cramp in your leg and the muscle goes into spasm, you can get the same thing with your colon. So your colon might narrow. I'm not saying this is an accurate description of how narrow it might get, but it represents what we're trying to say. So instead of being wide like this, it actually goes into a bit of a spasm and it narrows, and that means that you're trying to get waste matter that's this big through a narrow tube that might only be this big, and as you can imagine it doesn't fit very well. So sometimes people suffer with IBS-C, which is constipation, sometimes IBS-D, which is diarrhea-like, sometimes a mixture of both. So using my rice again, what I'm going to do is pour some more rice into the tube. And as you can see, there is now congestion. So some of the rice did go through there, not very much, so that would represent there's little bits of waste that might go through, but you get an awful lot of congestion from behind. And it's this congestion that leads to the discomfort of feeling of fullness. So because it won't travel through this narrow gap very easily, people suffer with constipation symptoms. And over a period of time, because one of the functions of your bowel is to absorb water, the water is absorbed out of it and it forms into the characteristic little balls that we suffer with. If you get enough pressure from behind, eventually it will go through this narrow part of your bowel, but it will make it really uncomfortable and people have to strain to get it to move a lot. So what I'm going to demonstrate now is what happens when people suffer with the IBS-D, which is the diarrhea type of symptoms. So I've got some water here and I'm going to pour that down over the top. And hopefully you can see that the water's travelling through quite easily, but it's leaving most of that waste matter behind. So people who suffer with diarrhea-like symptoms of irritable bowel, they'll still have this congestion stuck behind. So it looks like you've got diarrhea, you might be going to the toilet several times a day, but you've still got this congestion that you can feel behind and you still feel bloated and uncomfortable. As colon hydrotherapists, one of the things that we will often do is use particular herbs which contain certain qualities which will help to relax this spasm back to being like that again, and that allows everything to move. That does sound slightly simplistic, but that's essentially what we can do. So whether you're suffering with IBS-D, diarrhea, IBS-C, constipation, or a mixture of both, you can see that you get the same problem with this congestion, although you might experience it in different symptoms. So I hope that's given you a bit of a demonstration as to what happens